What's up, y'all? This here is the OT's World Cup takes. I'm Jarelli. I'm your host of the OT. I'm here at HQ. It does look a little different. I'll give you a tour next video. But we are recapping the FIFA World Cup. I haven't been able to update as consistently throughout the World Cup tournament. Now the tournament is over, I'm able to have a little breather, so I have a little time to just make one big recap. So we have a truckload of updates for you, and these truckload of updates are brought to you by Vicente Ruiz at Impel Union Truck and Trailer Sales. If you're looking for quality trucks and trailers in the Chicagoland area, call Vicente. All the info will be up on the screen. Share it with your friends, share it with your parents, share it with your tios, with your friends' parents. Whoever you think might need a truck, send them over to Vicente for quality trucks and trailers. This here is Big Bracket. Big Bracket did us justice. We even have all the group stage teams, or all the teams that didn't make it past the group stages over yonder. And we just kept following up from there on either side of the bracket. This was hand-drawn by myself, and I didn't do it permanently on the wall. I did it on paper this time because I knew it was gonna have to move, because we are at HQ. It is still the same HQ as before. It's just a different wall of HQ. So that's kind of the explanation for it. And someone brought up the very good point of, I can keep this as a memory for later because it's on paper. So it's a win-win, y'all. We probably all know by now, and if you didn't, spoiler alert, but Spain are the World Cup 2026 champs. Not a lot of action happened in that final game, I will be honest, but at the end of the day, a singular goal was scored, and that's all you need to win a game, and that goal was scored by Spain, and they are the champs. That game, though, was very dramatic. Argentina had a red card during the game, and it was due to a double yellow, so it wasn't a direct red. That does make a difference, but the first yellow that this player got could have been avoided. It was just due to attitude and a gesture they made towards the ref. When you're at such a big stage and it's so important, you can't really let that affect you and bring you down, and in the end you only hurt your team. They spent basically the rest of the match into overtime, because it did go to overtime with only 10 players. There's only so many substitutions you can do in soccer, football, however you want to call it, so you just gotta think smarter. Like I mentioned, Spain are World Cup champs, and this was their journey. So during group stages, actually during the entirety of the tournament, they only conceded a singular goal, which is crazy. And they didn't not lose a single match. They tied one, because in the group stages, you can tie matches. So they tied one, and they tied to Cabo Verde. Cabo Verde, I will talk about them shortly, because I'm only talking about, besides Spain, two other teams that really stood out to me. Otherwise, we would be here forever. And we're already delivering a truckload of updates. I'd need a second truck to talk about every single team. But, you know, Cabo Verde, a surprise to the tournament. Like I said, I'll get there. But Spain, when they first tied to Cabo Verde, because it was the first game Spain played, it raised red flags to fans and people who watch. Because you're supposed to be this world power in soccer, and you're supposed to be, you know, threatening. What do you mean a first-timer in the World Cup tied you? You know, and that's no disrespect to Cabo Verde, because we later found out that they did amazing this tournament. But at first you're like, oh, maybe I'm not betting on Spain. I'll be honest, because of that match, I was like, oh, I don't know if, I think Spain will go far, but I don't know if they'll make it all the way. But at the same time, that's like a double-edged sword, because when you tie to a team, you should never underestimate an opponent, no matter what level you're playing in. One, I think it's a little disrespectful if you do, and two, you just never know what could happen. That's the beauty of sports. That being said, it was kind of the general consensus that Spain was the heavy favorite to win that particular match. So for you to tie, you're kind of like, okay, I think we need to recoup, reset, and do better. And that showed, because immediately the next match, they won 4-0. So they kind of got all of that out of their system of like, dang, like, we're supposed to be a powerhouse here. Like, they kind of, that tie helped them remember who they were, in a sense, from my point of view. But anyway, group stages, they win their group. They're on to round of 32 versus Austria. Win 3-0 versus Austria. I think that was one of the more decisive wins in the round of 32. And then on to the round of 16 versus Portugal. Spain ends Ronaldo's dream of winning a World Cup this tournament, beating them 1-0. Moving on to the quarterfinals versus Belgium. And this is the match where they conceded a singular goal. So the final score was 2-1. On to the semifinals. That semifinal, France versus Spain. Where was France? I feel like France didn't show up. Like, it felt odd. It felt off. But, you know, nonetheless, Spain came out on top. World Cup final, 1-0. And Spain's your World Cup champions. They get a second star on their shirt above their crest. That's the thing, if you didn't know about soccer World Cup wins, is that you're adding stars as you win World Cup. Like the World Cup. If you win the World Cup, you add a star. Which is why the US men's team, who was eliminated by Belgium over here, they don't have any stars above their crest, but the US women have 4. So keep that in mind. Same thing, my other team, Mexico, got eliminated by England. The joke we made, I was watching that particular match at a friend's house and her family's house, and we're like, that's it, no Beatles, no Harry Potter, no One Direction. So it's okay, we're back. Anyway, I do want to talk about Mexico, because I think they went on a generational run. They just insane. They did what few other Mexican national teams could do, which is make it past the first round of eliminations. There is an asterisk, because this is the first year where we had a round of 32, because we added more teams. We started with 48 teams. So they still made history because they won an elimination game for the first time in a hot minute. But there was a bit of a caveat. However, they did not concede a single goal the entire group stage. They won all their group stage matches, so they came out on top with 9 points. And also, we just had a lot of breakthrough players. Like, another point that I have with this Mexico team is the future looks bright. Like, it's insane how bright this future is, because we have Gilberto Mora to begin with. He's 17. He might have turned 18 during the summer, but 17. youngest Mexican national to start in a World Cup game. He did that this tournament. Quiñones debuted with the selección at the World Cup. He's played for them before, but at the World Cup, he debuted and scored his first goal and all that. He was one of... I can't remember how to say this in English, pero uno de los mejores goleadores en todo el torneo. So, like, he scored a lot of goals throughout the tournament, which is what you want. Raúl Jiménez looked really good. And I think he's transitioning into being that mature figure in that locker room. Unfortunately, Memo Ochoa has officially retired as of recording this video. He announced it a few days back. But, you know, I think him being on this particular roster also helped in immense ways that we will see in the future. El Tala Rangel, who's basically his replacement in the goal, did phenomenal. He had a save that was very reminiscent of what Ochoa did versus Brazil in the previous World Cup. So stuff is just looking up, and you kind of can't help but to be optimistic. And I think that's kind of what's carrying me through. And I love their performance. I love their camaraderie. Their head coach has officially stepped away. He's no longer there with the Mexican national team. But in comes Rafa Marquez. Rafa Marquez was an assistant coach of this last coaching staff during this tournament. And I fear we might have seen a little more of his mastermind behind the plays than what people initially think. And a lot more people started realizing that after the tournament, but it's just all coming together. And Rafa Marquez is from a generation of Mexican soccer that they were very promising, very talented, and we thought they were going to make it all the way, but we kind of got robbed in 2014. I don't want to bring that up because I don't want to cry, but it's, above all, they gave people hope. They kind of united the country in a certain way, and people and its citizens outside of the country in a certain way. And you just had this undeniable belief that came to the tune of Juan Gabriel, and it was so inspiring, and it's like coursing through your veins that you're like, yeah! And that I want to say thank you to. That was exhilarating. It was fun while it lasted, and I can't wait for the next tournament, next match, where I get to see this team potentially shine and continue to grow. So that's my thank you note to the Mexican national team. The other team I want to talk about, because I did say I want to talk about two teams besides Spain. Cabo Verde's run, historic run. It's their very first time at the tournament. Their goalkeeper makes the best 11. He was named the best goalkeeper of the entire tournament. Bonkers. You're talking about a man, I believe he's in his 40s, late 30s, who's an electrician. And he just suited up and did his thing. Insane. And this falls under my thoughts and opinions. To me, they kind of put Cabo Verde on the map. I think as much as it does feel like money opportunity to just add more teams to the World Cup, so we start with 48 and we have more soccer, that's still kind of true. But it also has benefit to the countries coming into play who would have been cut otherwise. And Cabo Verde making it to the World Cup kind of put them on the map for the people who don't necessarily know, one, that it was a country. Not a lot of people are very well versed in geography. Two, how pretty it is, because once you look it up, like, they have so many pretty beaches. There was a lot of businesses from Cabo Verde who took that opportunity and they were like, hey, you might have heard about our country for the very first time because of the World Cup. This is what we offer. This is where you could come stay. This is where you could go eat. You could enjoy this attraction, this, that, and the third. And I think that's so powerful. It's another platform for these countries that are maybe a little smaller. And it's kind of insane marketing for the small businesses who, like the ones I saw on TikTok and Twitter, mostly TikTok and Instagram, that took advantage of it and are like, hey, you're probably hearing about my country for the very first time. This is what you could come do. And hey, this is our language. And maybe if you know this language and this language, you could get by. But there's people who speak English too. So just informing people that, hey, we're here, you can come visit. It just increases tourism and helps stimulate the economy as well for these countries. So I think in that aspect, it's a win-win. My tournament yellow cards. Officiating. I think officiating is easy to give a yellow card to. It's just, and if you're unfamiliar, you can give out regular fouls, yellow cards, and red cards during a soccer game. So this one's a little more alarming, but I wouldn't give it a red card. I think at the end of the day, there's still human error, and that's part of the game, and these players have been going through that their whole lives. So it's not the end of the world. Some of it is a little head scratchy, which is why it's a yellow card. Particularly the match that stands out for me is the Argentina versus Egypt. But there's also a lot of controversy. The view behind of how most of the Argentina matches were refereed. So that one's kind of up for debate, which is also why it only gets a yellow card for me. Another yellow card from the tournament is if you're a first-time viewer of soccer and the tournament versus when you deeply care for it, you might be a little confused as to like, how do people get here? like who even qualifies? What is this? So maybe just FIFA could have done a little bit more promotional, but on the educational end of things. I don't know. That's just my personal view. Me, I watch a tournament every 4 years. I'm not super well versed, but I'm not completely lost watching. Or if I'm in a room full of people talking about it, I know my way around. But that's just coming from the slightly biased opinion of the USA, Canada, and Mexico hosted the tournament. Very notably, the USA is not a very big soccer country. So I think that's where the little misstep was, because of who the host country was. Otherwise, they do the same thing every 4 years and it works out in their favor. It gets a ton of traction. People talk about soccer and it moves and stimulates things. However, the last time the World Cup was like in the US, which was, I believe, 1996, or like co-hosted or whatever, the following year, there was so much mania for soccer. The following year, the MLS was established. So maybe taking on those opportunities, similar to how I spoke about Cabo Verde taking those opportunities, being on this stage, USA could do that too. But, you know, with local teams and schools and stuff. But that's why it's a yellow card, because it could just be debatable. I do have tournament red cards. This one is my opinion, but Mexico getting eliminated. That was a red card for me. After Mexico got eliminated, the sun stopped shining, the skies were gray. It was a rainy afternoon. No, I'm just kidding. Like, the weather was fine. Literally, the weather was fine. But I'm not kidding about it being a red card, though, because it just sucked the life out of the tournament for me. I still watched because, well, big bracket. But, yeah, it just was a lot more fun when Mexico was playing. And I don't know. There was just, like I mentioned before when I was talking about Mexico as a team, like, just such an adrenaline rush. And just, like, the vibes were immaculate there. Another tournament red card is, I fear I must talk about it. I did speak on USA being a home country host country, also my home country, and that's Christian Pulisic. He gets a red card for me just because of the comments he made. Not necessarily because of his performance throughout the tournament. I think his performance was fine. Like, it's not, or I wouldn't call that superstar performance. Maybe there's other things that he did not disclose, but based on public knowledge, my opinion is his attitude, his energy, and just this, I'm Captain America, but not putting the team on your shoulders. That last match when they got eliminated by Belgium left a really bad taste in my mouth. He's supposed to be the leader of this team. He needs to charge forward as such. To me, the biggest star of the U.S. this tournament was Bulligan, because he just scored the goals and produced. But I just, Pulisic gets a red card for me. I fear it's just not how you should conduct yourself in a World Cup. And it's such a big stage, and you're the host country. So I think it's all this layered nuances that makes it worse. I do hope, though, and wish him luck in his career, and for the sake of the country and success, I hope he plays well for the U.S., but it left a bad taste in my mouth this tournament. Final red card. That's right. I'm giving out more red cards than yellow. It seemed like that was a trend this whole tournament anyway, so we're keeping on trend. Last red card. Argentina's conduct post-match for the final. Like I said, it was very dramatic. There was a red card during the match. Post-match, after Spain is celebrating, confetti, fireworks, everything is being thrown, even hands. That's right. Argentina decided to take the field and fight Spain. I can't remember off the top of my head, and I forgot to write it down, which player it was specifically, but there was an Argentinian player who grabbed the Spanish player by the neck, and then someone else came in and threw that same Spanish player on the ground. What are we doing, guys? Like, it sucks losing. No one hates losing more than a competitive athlete. I know this. I hate losing even now. Like, even if it's a Mario Kart race, I hate losing. But when you're on the biggest stage, similar to what I had to say about Pulisic, you have to conduct yourself a certain way, especially because Argentina were the reigning champs, so they won it the last time. So show some decorum. I mean, you got second place. Second place isn't first, but hey, you made it further than anyone else on this big bracket besides Spain. So it's just, to me, that was not the way, but on happier notes. I know I said truckload, but we might need a second truck. So I'm going to call Vicente to get a second truck for it. Anyway, the next thing you should keep in mind, don't put away your jerseys quite yet. There's another World Cup coming up, and it's not in 4 years, it's in 1. That's right, the Women's World Cup is in 2027. It will be hosted by Brazil. So that being said, Brazil's already qualified, as well as 14 of the 32 teams. That's right, there's only 32 teams in the women's game. But last World Cup was hosted in New Zealand. USA had an early exit. That's right. Unlike the men, the women are used to winning. So the women are looking to kind of avenge that, come back from it. As of right now, the U.S. women's national team has not qualified for the World Cup quite yet, but I don't anticipate that being a problem. Mexico women's national team has not qualified quite yet either, but it's looking really promising for them. So they're probably going to be in that tournament as well. So don't put away your jerseys quite yet. Stick around to support the women. Speaking of supporting women, Spanish team, men and women's national teams are both the current World Cup champions. This is the first time in history that the same country is the World Cup champion at the same time for both men and women's tournament. Like I said, that was a truckload of updates brought to you by Vicente over at Impel Union Truck and Trailer Sales. If you're looking for quality trucks and trailers in the Chicagoland area, call Vicente. The info is right over yonder. Tell your friends to tell a friend. And as always, thank you for watching. Thank you for staying tuned. Subscribe, follow, send me an email, I don't know. Thanks for watching, y'all.